Hey guys, it's Misty Buck, president of Miss Inc., and I want to welcome you back for another Marketing Monday. I have a really special guest today, so I want to thank you guys for being here. We're going to talk about mindful marketing. So if you don't know what that is, yes, it's a real thing, and we're going to talk to you all about it. I am so happy today because my guest is none other than Sandy Skelaney. Did I say your last name correct? Okay, she is the executive director over at Mindful Kids Miami. And if you don't know what Mindful Kids Miami is, she will go ahead and explain that to you. She's setting up her watch party right now, things that happen live on air. So she's setting up that watch party on her phone, so she can check that out as well on Facebook if you are connected with her there. And anyway, so I'm going to go ahead. You can explain what Mindful Kids Miami is, but I've actually been aware of this organization for several years before we even had a chance to meet or connect. And they do this amazing thing with students in Miami and in Miami-Dade County Public Schools and throughout the area, where they teach mindfulness to kids. So it's just ridiculously helpful. I've been to one of their gala events with Renee, and what they do to help kids learn mindfulness, and it's really helping with their stress reduction. Right? Like you guys have done study after study on this. So anyhow, I'll let her introduce all that. I'm going to stop blabbing away and I'm going to welcome Sandy. Go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us about Mindful Kids Miami.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. So Mindful Kids Miami, our goal is to bring the benefits of mindfulness to all children in South Florida. And we do that through providing mindfulness training to teachers and social workers and adults who are interacting with children on a daily basis. So those programs are anywhere from just one-off workshops to 8-week, 14-week type of programs that teach teachers how to bring mindfulness into the classroom. And so, yes, I'm so happy to be here to talk a little bit about mindfulness.
Yeah, well, we are super happy to have you. So we're going to talk again about mindfulness and marketing, because this is the Marketing Monday show after all, right? So let's talk a little bit about what mindfulness is. So we're talking about things like stress reduction, but also empathy, about connecting, about being present in the moment and all the benefits of that. So let's talk about that for a second and kind of really define what mindfulness is. And then we can jump into how that relates to marketing.
Yeah. So mindfulness is used, that phrase is used a lot these days. But it's really about kind of actively paying attention to the present moment, non-judgmentally.
Right.
And so it's more than just kind of an intellectual process. This is a process that you need kind of mindfulness embodied, and you need to be, working on the mindfulness practices and really learning about how to sit in your experience, your internal experience and your external experience in the moment.
Right. And one of the things that, I practice meditation and mindfulness, and I'm still getting better at it. I'm not great at it, but I think, especially in something in like marketing with an agency where it's, you see those descriptions of having a bunch of tabs open in your brain, but also literally that happens. That's where I'm at all day long. So to like really focus in on those things can be a challenge. So like I'll use affirmations in the morning to just sort of set my tone for the day and to get my brain right. So I know that those are some tools that you can use to achieve that. But, when we're talking about mindfulness, one of the things is sort of being okay with things regardless of the outcome.
Right.
Right. And so when we're looking at that in terms of marketing, people will put a lot of stress into what it has to mean, like what's the outcome, and they get totally frazzled by that. And part of the mindfulness in marketing is it's like creating campaigns and just kind of letting things flow.
Oh, so we're going to dig right into
it. Let's jump right into it.
I have I have a lot to say about marketing, mostly because before I was at Mindful Kids, I also was the founder of Project Gold at Christie House. So I brought to our community a system-wide effort to help kids who are being exploited and trafficked. And in that process, I had to deal with a lot of media. We were the first program that worked with children who were sexually trafficked. And so everybody wanted to kind of talk to our clients and get the interviews and all that stuff. So there was, I learned a lot about public relations, about media.
Right.
And as a kind of manager in a nonprofit, there's this kind of tension that we have to walk between how do we do the best for our clients and for the community that we're serving, while also being able to promote what we're doing. Right. And promote it in a way that isn't overly sensationalizing. Correct. Or isn't kind of falling to these really what I think of as like superficial kind of marketing tactics, which is really kind of firing up that amygdala, that fight or flight response, making people afraid if they don't do this, that something's going to happen. And a lot of human trafficking awareness campaigns have been that. They've been about, let's kind of put that cute little, like really young white girl out there in chains, right, and make everybody really kind of like overwhelmingly upset about that this could be my kid. And it's not really an accurate picture. And it really kind of did more harm to the anti-trafficking movement in a way, because people's image of what it was like the movie Taken, where kids were getting kidnapped. And if that's not the reality of the situation, how are you really going to expect people to help, right? So what you're really doing is just triggering this fear, right? And so I started looking at marketing like that. Like, what is this marketing? These marketing campaigns are all about kind of triggering this in the sense of fear, social rejection, social inclusion, and how do we, so in this mindfulness work, how do we go about marketing in a way that's mindful, that's not kind of bent on triggering kind of these worst uncomfortable feelings in us to get somebody to buy something, right? Or buy into something,
right? Yeah, and I think sort of that idea of one of my clients is a local nonprofit, Riverside House, and what they do, I don't know if anyone's familiar with them, but what they are basically is a reentry house for people reentering. They're leaving the prison, and either they are finishing their sentence out at this reentry facility, or there's another circumstance that has led them there. And that sort of has been a challenge as well, right? Is figuring out how do we craft our messages around there, and in a way that's sensitive to the population that we're serving as well, right? So I think like that becomes another piece of the puzzle, and focusing on those things. So, all right. So you were at Christie House, right? And you were creating all these campaigns and redefining. And so, what else did you learn? And when did you start to think about applying mindfulness into marketing?
I mean, it was really right away. It was, as soon as I saw kind of how the media was treating the interviews, the articles, and all of the agencies around me that were kind of putting out these images of kids in cages and things like that.
Right.
And I could see directly how that impacted people I worked with,
Right.
And so for me, it was, I always kind of took a step back after that. And every time somebody wanted to talk to me, interview me, I always, I looked at, well, what's your agenda?
Right.
What are we doing with this? Let's do a little training first. Let's, I want to sensitize people or humanize people to the clients that we're working with, rather than kind of putting them out there as like this voyeuristic, drama that they can look at and get attached to in a way where they're looking at this person as the other, right? And so like my life is not so bad because look at that person's life, and
right,
I could be a hero if I rescue that person, and that's not what we want to do, right? We want to being mindful means that we're really connecting with people and humanizing all people as equally deserving, equally in this space that we call the world. And in order to do that, we really need to start looking at ourselves internally, right? So we have these external reactions to things that are happening. And if we just take a pause for a second and notice how we're feeling inside our bodies at the moment, a lot of times you see that what you're about to react to is really just your stuff.
Right.
It's this kind of tension in your stomach, or I feel nervous, or whatever it is, right? And so if you're reacting to that stuff, then you're not necessarily reacting in a skillful way, in a helpful way. You're not reacting in somebody else's best interest, So if you're thinking mindfully, you say, okay, this is my stuff. I'm afraid for that person. I'm afraid for myself, or, this makes me really sad. I don't know, but if you're aware of what's going on first, you can become more responsible about how you're reacting or responding I should say, skillfully to people around you, to the world around you.
Right.
Right. It changes your behaviors. It changes your actions. It makes you more compassionate, and that's all those benefits you see about mindfulness.
Right. Right.
So.
Yeah. And I find too a couple of things here. So in this conversation is one that it seems that that sometimes people they get really scared in their business, especially as a small business owner. And I saw this a lot this year, and understandably so, by the way, with COVID and with the pandemic and the shifting things. And people started panicking because they're like, wow, okay, where do I put my advertising dollars now? How do I protect my business? How do I protect my family? And so you start to react in all those different ways. And that sort of can translate into the marketing, whether you're thinking, okay, people just, sort of start. And, we see this too also with the social justice movement. People, it invoked a lot of, and again, understandably so, but it invoked a lot of fear. This year, people felt a lot of fear. Yep. So can you kind of talk about using mindfulness techniques to work through that fear as a business owner or leading an organization?
So it's extremely hard to promote, to market mindfulness.
Right.
It really is. And part of the reason is because we want everyone to experience mindfulness. Mindfulness has wonderful benefits. It improves your sleep, it reduces anxiety, it reduces depression.
Right.
It helps you improve your relationships with people. If you're in a classroom, you have better classroom management because you're able to manage your own emotional regulation better, right? So there's so many benefits to mindfulness. But I think a traditional kind of marketing strategy would be, are you overwhelmed? Are you at your wit's end?
Right.
Is life falling apart for you?
Right.
And,
right. Yeah.
And this isn't mindful, because if you're doing that in order to kind of engage an emotional response, what you're doing is you're triggering them, right? You're not being mindful towards them.
Right.
You're actually triggering discomfort, panic. You're triggering more anxiety just to get them to feel like they need your program. So it's so hard,
right,
to market from mindfulness. But I really believe that all marketing can benefit from mindfulness, right? So, it's very sad to me. I've been doing mindfulness practices for 20 years.
Wow.
I've been a feminist for longer than that. It's really sad to me to see how many billions of dollars women are spending on, self-improvement, physical, aesthetic self-improvement, weight loss, makeup, all these things, right? So if you think about, those ads are traditionally targeting your innermost insecurities and fears and things like that, and it's kind of like this base level of marketing, and from an evolutionary standpoint, we are not that far from, the hunter-gatherer tribal place, right? Where we were running around in groups of 50. And the thing is that you need that kind of social acceptance.
Fight or flight, and you needed the fight or flight response.
Needed the fight or flight.
Right.
And what happens is, if you don't have that social acceptance, then your tribe kicks you out, leaves you on the savannah or whatever. And then when that happens, you die. Okay? Because, we have a different world now that we live in. We don't need to be accepted by our group of 50 people in order just to survive. But the evolution, our body chemistry has not changed much since then. And so any sense of social rejection and social exclusion actually triggers a biochemical response, a panic response from us, right? And so a lot of marketing is set up to trigger that.
Right.
Right?
It's true.
And then in a sense to manipulate you into buying, right? In order to meet those criteria for being in the social group that you want to be in, right? So that you're not alone. Or even they're triggering this sense of feeling like you're going to be alone if you don't do X, Y, Z.
Right.
And that's, to me, I feel like it's highly irresponsible. But in a world that's kind of driven by profit, and that formula works.
Right.
Right. And so the more that we understand that mindfulness as a consumer, would help you to be able to see through that.
Right.
Right. It would be able to, if you're practicing mindfulness and you're watching all this kind of advertising around you, you're going to be probably more likely to notice, oh, I saw that beautiful woman in that ad, and then all of a sudden I felt shame that I don't feel that I don't look that way, or that I'm alone and I don't have a partner, or and so, but you'll be able to recognize that and take a pause and kind of reassess what's true, what's important in your life, and things like that. And I think that's really important as a consumer side.
Right.
As a business side, I think it's really important for businesses to be more mindful in their marketing. Okay. I know that this is there's a profit incentive, and I'm totally aware of that. But what I'm really encouraged by is that I'm seeing more and more marketing around kind of social impact that has another lens to it, right? And so, I mean, this is like an old example at this point now, right? But the Dove kind of natural beauty campaign, that was so innovative and so out of the box for what we had at the time.
Right.
And they took a huge risk to get out there and say, we're not photoshopping anybody. We're using models of all different sizes. We're showing them in their underwear, all different colors, no makeup, Right. They really kind of put it out there, and they were just like, you're beautiful as is, and use our product, please. Right?
Yeah. We get you.
but that kind of marketing worked out really well for them because it responded to this great need that so many women had, where we were just kind of constantly bombarded with these images that we have to look a certain way, we have to wear this kind of makeup, we have to, be this weight, be this color.
Right.
And it was so limiting. And so they really kind of tapped into this market. And I'm going to tell you, the benefit of doing that is that you're going to end up with a loyal consumer base, customer base, that's going to not only use your product, but it's going to go on shows like this and talk about your ad campaign.
Right.
It's because it's really positive, right? So mindful marketing is like good for the business and upholds our social values.
Right. And so it's not like sort of combining helping people feel uplifted rather than fear, like that fear, that stress tactic. So I love that. So can you share some examples over at Mindful Kids Miami of how you guys implement that practice in your own marketing? Like, so what kind of messages are you looking at? What are you, how are you applying this over there?
Well, especially now with COVID, we've done a lot of, we've responded to the community. We did some surveys to see kind of, if they're not kind of joining up for our programs, what that's about, like trying to get to know them better. Right. And so we've opened up a lot more options for people because, a lot of people are struggling. A lot of people are out of work. One of our target groups is teachers, and teachers are completely overwhelmed right now. They're teaching online, they're teaching from the school, they're in and out of school, they have to quarantine. I mean, and they're taking care of their own kids at home. I mean, it's right now our heart really goes out to all those teachers and social workers and healthcare providers that are working, triple time. But we have focused on just kind of giving a gift back to the community. Really, at this point, our enrollment is of course naturally down a little bit. Like everybody's seeing the hit of COVID. I think a lot of people are. But at the same time, we're using this opportunity to reach out and really kind of try to pull the community in. We have free workshops running on a weekly basis. Anybody can just jump right in and come and join us. And we're giving like scholarships and discounts on our programs, and really trying to just be there any way we can. All of our programs move from in person to online. So we've done everything we can just to make ourselves available, because really that's the mindful thing to do in this moment. And then we rely on just the generosity of the people who are in a position to be able to help us, donors, grants and things like that, to keep us going. So
yeah, I think I love that. And so how can people sorry, I just saw a comment on the screen. Someone's asking, if you're someone's sister-in-law.
Yes, I am. Shout out to Jen.
So there you go. There's your answer, Brenda.
Yeah.
So, anyways, and I want to say hi. I have a couple of people watching as well. Chelsea, Lauren, thank you guys for joining in and tuning in today, checking out our show. I know you guys love this topic of mindfulness, so thanks for being here. So, all right. So we're talking about, mindfulness, and we're talking about programs that you guys have sort of shifted. How can people get those programs? Like, how can they, if they say, oh, I want to learn more about mindfulness and I'm interested in some of these courses that you guys offer, how do I get involved? Like, where do they go for that?
Oh, that's easy. Just go to our website, sign up for our newsletter. The website is www.mindfulkidsmiami.org.
Very simple. mindfulkidsmiami.org. ORG. Did I say that correctly? I don't even know. It's Monday, guys. What do you want from me? So, all right. So let's talk about if someone is watching this, right? And I've talked a lot in the past on this show, and even in my own stuff that we do with marketing over at Miss Inc. and in trends and things that are happening. We talk a lot about this idea of empathetic marketing along the lines of the social impact that you were talking about, of being just really humanizing your brand and less about selling and less about these scare tactics like Sandy's talking about, and more about just that human connection. Right. So like, I have a few questions for you, but the first one is like, how can a business owner begin to think about their message in a way that matches that? Like, so what's one or two things that they should be considering in their marketing right now to be more mindful in their marketing approach?
Oh, wow. You know what? I'm going to use an example from my friend, Sean Wrench, who just recently, not too long ago, started a kind of wellness coaching and keto coaching program. But he did it because he experienced such great success doing the program himself, and he wanted to give back. And so he gets on his group, it's the Keto Jumpstart group, and he gets on and he does all these live videos, and he is this authentic person, right? Like, he's even said he's gotten advice from other marketers that, to kind of be a certain way, right, when you're on there. And he's just kind of like said, F it. I drop F-bombs. I talk about this or that. I'm kind of quirky, right? And he said as soon as he really embraced his authenticity and the humanity of who he is, like, as a public person, right? His group exploded. He's got like 3,000 people in this group now. And it really works. And he said, he's been given advice not to give away all your products for free. And he gets on and he just gives away tons of stuff. He's constantly giving back to the community and talking about how much he loves the community, right? And how much he wants to help people, because he genuinely does. And people respond to that. I think that one of the kind of disservices we do when we're in business is really just kind of underestimating your consumers, underestimating your clients. And really just kind of feeling like maybe you can trick them into buying something, or maybe if you only give them, one thing, and then you start spamming them with all of this, that funnel, right? You give them the one lead magnet, and then you start spamming them like crazy to buy the 1,500 package.
Right.
The thing that you're underestimating is that you can give away a ton of stuff and people will still buy from you, because now they trust you. They love that you've given this much. They want to give back to you. They feel like you deserve it, and so there's a whole different kind of business model that for marketing that I think that we need to explore, and it's more about kind of community. How can we be in community with each other and support each other?
Right. Yeah. And I'm definitely seeing that trend emerging, but it's what people are hungry for. I mean, we have, especially with the social media and everything looking like it has to be perfect in a certain way. And we have all these, buy from us messages, and people are hungry for. And again, I think this year really propelled that transformation even more, because we're all forced to slow down and think like, okay, what's really going on in my life? What's really important to me? I think we were all found ourselves, or most of us found ourselves in that position with at least some time for that reflection. And so I find that, you know, people are really, they're even hungrier for that connection. Like no one wants to say, hey, buy from me. They want to hear, you know, who you are, what you're doing. And again, you've probably heard me say this, guys, a million times, but people do business with people that they like. And, you know, you're not going to be able to serve every single person. So when you worry about creating a brand and a message that serves every single person, you're sort of missing the mark and you're not being authentic to who you are. And there's this energetic thing that happens and people will just be attracted to you from that authenticity. So I love that example about your friend with the keto group. I mean, that's the perfect example, I think, of this and how to do that. And also showing like, what are you doing in your community? What are you doing to support other people? And people, they really vibe with that.
Yeah, they really love that too. When they see you out in the community doing work. Some of the things that we're looking at doing, you know, we have a very small staff.
Right.
So, you know,
well, you guys are fairly new still, right? Like what, like 6 years, 5? How many years have you guys been around?
Yeah, like we've been very active for 6 years.
Okay.
Yeah. So we have a very small staff and, you know, limited ability to kind of run these great marketing campaigns. But if, you know, ideally the way that the direction we want to be going is doing more of the live stuff, you know, the Facebook Live, really engaging in conversation with our, you know, base and engaging people. And I really want to start doing more of that. We have a couple of high school interns lined up for next semester after break. And one of the things that we want to work with them on is having them go through a mindfulness program and then doing like a vlog where they're kind of talking about their day, you know, doing this mindfulness practice every day and then talking about kind of, you know, what that looks like, how that's changing them over a course of time. So I thought that would be something really engaging.
I love that. Yeah. Oh, I'm going to look for that. I'm on your list. I'm going to keep an eye out for that because I think that's, and I think we could all stand for that. I mean, even if I know you guys work with kids, but if you wanted to do a mindfulness practice for business owners, I mean, sign me up.
Yeah. Our name is Mindful Kids Miami, but most of our programs are geared towards adults because we want to create cultures of mindfulness around children. So that's the idea behind the name. So don't be frightened by the name. We also give programs for kids and teens as well. But we definitely work a lot with community. So, and any community members can join. Anybody can join up to our programs. You'll see them all on our website.
I love it. So, okay, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit right now. Like I haven't done this already in this past segment. But anyways, I'm going to put you a little bit on the spot. Is there a mindfulness exercise that we can do right now live on air and teach people really quickly? I don't know if it's a breathing exercise or maybe there's something else that you have in mind that we can kind of give people a tool today, talking about giving things away for free, right? So
oh my gosh.
Is there like maybe, like a breathing or something that like when you're saying in those moments when people are feeling panicked and they want to, you know, figure out what that response is all about and slow down and take a pause.
Yeah.
What?
Okay. So full confession, I am not a trained teacher of meditation. So technically I can't guide you through a meditative practice. So that said, I've been doing it for 20 years. And one of the kind of micro practices that I've done repeatedly whenever I feel kind of like a little frazzled or, you know, I do counting exercises. So that helps you get your attention. And it's actually a little bit challenging enough so that you have to pay attention to it when you do it.
Okay.
So it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. So you don't duplicate the ends.
Okay.
You just kind of, and you breathe with each of the numbers.
Okay.
Right. So you're like 1 breathing in, 2 breathing out.
Okay.
3 breathing in, 4 breathing out, 5 breathing in, 4 breathing out, 3 breathing in, 2 breathing out, 1 breathing in, 2 breathing out. Okay, so if you try,
I feel more relaxed already.
so, and you know, and it's something that I feel, you know, as a micro practice, it's so easy just to kind of come back to that,
right?
And you have to pay attention to it because you'll just lose your place with the numbers and the breathing.
Yeah, yeah. Another one that I really like, I'm sure you've heard of it. It's pretty popular. Is the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 method. That's another good one that I use for grounding in the moment. Are you familiar with
Go ahead. You can explain
that one. Okay. So that one, it's something I did not make this up. It's something that, and I'm not trained or anything like that. It's just something fun that I like to use when things are crazy. So you're basically, what you're doing is you're using your five senses to come back to like the present moment. So same thing. If you're feeling frazzled, this is that was a perfect example of something that you can do. If you feel like you need grounding, or I've used this with anxiety, because anxiety is something that I have had issues with. So basically what you do is you sit and you say, okay, it's 5 things you can see. So you look for 5 things you can see, 4 things that you can touch. I think it's 3 things that you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 things that you can taste. And then that is basically your practice of bringing you, boom, right back in the moment, in the present space of where things are when you feel like the floor just might be taken out from underneath you, right?
Yeah, so, and that's very common in therapy. They use that in therapy a lot. One of the very common ones that goes with the mindfulness-based stress reduction program, which is one of our signature programs, is like the 3-minute breathing space.
Okay.
Right. So that's just basically about something has happened, right? And maybe somebody is kind of confronting you, or whatever, or just kind of being rude. And our initial response is to kind of just, get defensive or lash out or react to that, right? Because, but what's really going on is something's going on inside your body, right? Like that happens, and it's kind of activating your fight or flight or whatever response. And so you're feeling it in your gut, you're feeling it in your throat. I don't know. Everybody's got a different place where they feel it. So the 3-minute breathing space is really stop. So consciously stop, don't react right away.
Okay.
And you're going to take 3 minutes. You're going to check in, right, to what's going on. You're going to like kind of do a quick scan of your body. Like, where is this showing up for me right now?
Okay.
Then you're going to do a quick scan of like what you're thinking.
Okay.
Right?
So a scan of your body, a scan of what you're thinking.
Yeah, because a lot of times that thought process becomes like this kind of self-defeating rumination, or you're making assumptions about this person that you know nothing about this person, and clearly then you're like, he's an a-hole and this and that, right? So you don't really know what's going on with that person, right? And as soon as you and then you breathe, okay, you take a few breaths and you focus on your breath. When you're done with that, a lot of times it's kind of shifted your perspective on the situation. And now you can see you're reacting to this uncomfortable feeling that you're having in your body that you want to go away. And so if you can sit with it for a second, it's going to pass. You don't have to like lash back out at somebody for it to go away. Right. So that's what that's about. And then when you realize that your thoughts are really just what's coming through your filter of experience. And you don't really know this person. It really has nothing to do with you. And it probably has everything to do with the fact that person just lost their one of their parents like this week, or, some other thing that it doesn't even matter. Right. Because they're having a crappy day and they're taking it out on you, but you don't have to react to that. Right. You don't have to kind of jump into the drama, right? And so that's a really helpful practice that really requires you just to pause. And it's 3 minutes.
Right. Like, we can take 3 minutes. Right? Yeah. We can take 3 minutes. Yeah. And sometimes I'll feel like, okay, I'm going to excuse myself to the restroom or whatever it is to give myself that time. So I love that exercise. I love that because it does happen. You'll notice it in your body has a response. And I think once you start to get to know yourself better, you'll understand what those responses feel like. So I love that you guys, and I know in your programs, you probably do way more deep diving into that and teaching all those things and how to do that. So I really, really love that. So, all right. So I don't even know how long we've been on the air here, but or how much time we have. There's somebody else coming underneath us, but all right. So what are some, I know we've touched on so many things today. Is there anything that we haven't touched on yet that you want everybody to know, business owners, consumers, the community?
Oh my gosh. No, just join us. If you're, seriously, we are, our faculty that teach these programs are really doing it out of the kindness of their hearts. And especially the free workshops that we have on a weekly basis. we're not paying people to teach those.
Right.
They're doing them because they really care about the community and that they want to, you know, just give openly and help people to get through this COVID situation. And so mindfulness doesn't always seem easy. You know, people think it's just about calming down.
Right.
Calming down is a nice side effect that many people get, but that's not necessarily the goal, right? And sometimes it feels like work, especially if you're signing up for an 8-week program, right? But I promise you, on the other end of that, your life becomes transformed because you have a completely different way of looking at the world and looking at the people around you.
Right.
You know, if you're, and like I said, I've been doing mindfulness 20 years.
Right.
I started mindfulness back before I started working with children who are sexually trafficked. And if you can imagine, that population is high trauma, high stress, very challenging.
Right.
You know, the rates of burnout when you're a social worker working with kids who have been experiencing trauma are extremely high. The rates of burnout for teachers, especially right now, probably also very high.
Right.
What happens when you're burned out? You get compassion fatigue. Okay. That's like,
I like compassion fatigue.
So if you're not burning out and just kind of leaving your job, then you're getting compassion fatigue, which means that you are not as empathetic, as compassionate, as engaging with your clients. You're more just kind of living at this basic level of stress, chronic stress. And of course, we know what chronic stress does to the body, right? Chronic stress, shooting out all that cortisol, you're going to gain weight. You're not going to eat mindfully anymore. You know, you're going to reach for your comfort food. You're going to kind of curl up in your little ball and not want to do anything, not reach for those exercise and all those things that help. And it kind of is this downward spiral, right?
Oh yeah. It can have total crazy. If you don't know, understand, if you've never looked into the long-term effects of stress on your body, in addition to these things that Sandy just mentioned, look into it. It's astounding. And I'm pretty willing to bet most of you out there have been to a doctor and they're like, oh, your problem is that you're stressed, right? Like the symptom presents itself as a way of all that built up.
Yeah. But it doesn't always seem easy, right? People they take yoga sometimes, or they go to one meditation and they think it's going to like transform their whole life.
It's a discipline,
but it's a practice. You know, your mind is a muscle. It needs to be practiced. But once you start doing something regularly, even if it's 10 minutes every morning, you know, you're going to start noticing changes, and you're going to be able to, you know, my life feels so much easier now, even though it's not that the circumstances is that like life got better, right? It's actually just that I'm better able to cope with the things that are coming into my life.
And I love that. I think that, you know, as an individual, as a business owner, however you define yourself, challenges are inescapable, emotions are inescapable. And so these are things that if you can learn how to use a practice, and implement, I should say, a practice like mindfulness, because it's not like it's a course you even take for 8 weeks and then you're cured forever. It's an ongoing process, right? Like you have to continue to work at it. So I think you explained that so well today. So thank you so much for taking the time to being here. So again, so it's mindfulkidsmiami.org or mindfulkidsmiami.org. And if you have you want to sign up you have your newsletter sign up list there, right? So people can find out about your classes and everything that you guys are offering. All right. So we're in a holiday season. It's an odd holiday season, but it's still a holiday season. There's still some stress going on. So let's close out today with one thing that you would say about sort of being mindful moving forward through the rest of the year and going into next year.
Oh, because we're coming through this holiday season. Yeah. Well, one, don't expect that, you know, January 1st, everything's going to be like rosy, right? So that's not the reality. You know, but as we're going through this holiday season, I know that people have been really struggling, and I know that, you know, people are, have family that aren't there. Right. So it's really important to practice self-care more than ever. Right. If Christmas isn't as fruitful as it is every year, that's okay. You know, if it's not as many people around you this year, you know, the experience that you have right now is what's, you know, meant to be here right now. And so we need to just look at that and just kind of be we need to be able to be okay
Mm-hmm.
with the experience in the moment as it is right now, and just be grateful for what we have,
Mm-hmm.
and health, or children, or whatever,
Right.
whatever it is that you have, because we're all struggling in some way,
Mm-hmm.
right? So and just hopefully people will understand that we're in this together. Okay. um, so reach out, contact us, even if you need somebody to talk to, really, and come to our weekly sessions, and there'll be people there to kind of help get you through this.
Oh, I love that. So there you go, guys. You can go check them out. Make sure you check out their weekly sessions. Again, I like to say mindfulness and meditation is not an emergency button that you hit when things are going wrong, or I think you've referred to before. It's not a magic pill, but it's something that if you put forth and you work towards, you will really reap long-term benefits for it. So I want to thank Sandy so much for being here today. I could talk about this forever, in case you guys haven't noticed. There's so many more questions that I have, but I don't know how much time we have today. So I don't want to hog up the studio, but I want to thank Sandy for being here again. And I want to thank everyone for being here. We'll be back next week. We're going to talk about PR and media relations and what that's like these days. And so stay tuned for that Marketing Monday next week. And again, I'm Misty Buck with Miss Inc. This is Sandy Skelaney. She's the executive director of Mindful Kids Miami. And we want to thank you guys for being here. And I will see you next week. Make it a great one.